Games. Who doesn't love a good game? We all play them. There are friendly games and serious games, fair games and unfair games, war games, mind games. The list goes on and on and on. You and I are even playing a game right now. You could call it an attention game. Will you continue to watch this video or not? We are in this dynamic of me keeping you just interested enough to stay here. As soon as you no longer see a direct benefit to yourself, you will disengage. So I have to hook you in, which is what the beginning portion of the video is called, the hook. All media works like this. Books, movies, music, and commercials, they are games. Even further, all communication works like this. People who work in sales understand this fully. When you boil sales down to its essence, it's just the study and practice of getting people to do things. That's the game. This is why you hear people in sales say things like, everyone is in sales, they just don't know it, because communication itself is ultimately a game. It's a back and forth. It takes two to tango. Now on YouTube, in order to get beyond this initial hook, I have to serve you somehow. I either have to Jester Max and give you your fix of a dopamine hit via entertainment, give you something for free like financial advice, show you how to do something, or, for the most curious of minds, disclose information about the threads that hold reality together like I'm doing now. This is the YouTube game. On YouTube, the viewer has more leverage. The producer has to first give in hopes of receiving, in contrast with the consumer, who always receives, albeit not always what they want. It's an unfair game, and I'm not complaining here because most, if not all, games are unfair in real life. Take chess, for example. In chess, white goes first, so it has a statistical advantage. That's just the way it is. Someone has to take the short end of the stick. Even if you could make it so that the chessboard was a true even 50-50, inevitably one person will be smarter than the other. They have different risk tolerances, etc. So while technically the board would be fair, the players wouldn't be. This is why there are rankings and weight classes to try and make things as fair as possible, but it's virtually impossible to make things completely fair. This isn't a bug of the system, it's a feature. Nature feeds off of this disequilibrium. If things were truly fair, then nothing would happen at all. It would be like trying to outsmart or sneak past your own reflection. It would be impossible to proceed. In order to sneak past your reflection, there has to be the capacity for difference, a delay, error, imperfection, to lose, winners and losers, leverage. This is omnipresent in every aspect of society. Look at the housing market. There are buyers markets and sellers markets where the party with the most leverage inverts periodically. You also see it in gender dynamics where women and men have periods of leverage that invert periodically. There's a reason for this. It's because they are all games. The producer and consumer are playing a game. Men and women are playing a game. Children and parents, pedestrians and drivers. Everything you see can be framed in the context of a game because nature is a game player. It's a vast network of games. The flower and bees play, the wolf and rabbit play, electron and protons play. Some are pretty fair games like we see with mutualism, while others are really unfair like we see with parasitism. This is how nature does its business, and if you pay attention, at the base of every game lies a relationship, because reality is pattern, connection, information, and relationships. That is my little jingle I often recite. Every relationship or pattern is like a little game that's being played. Now, our ability to engage with reality is what we describe as intelligence. We call it pattern recognition. A more high-tech way to phrase it would be to say we identify systems like we see with thermodynamics. Whether you call it a pattern, connection, information, relationships, order, organization, or systems, they all point to the same phenomenon. That which is beheld by intelligence. I call this memory. We recognize patterns, but no one knows what patterns are. They are the fundamental building blocks of knowledge. They are knowledge itself. We can't explain what they are. We can only see what they do. We apprehend them, pattern apprehension. It's like how we never see energy. We only see what it does. We see the behaviors it causes. In simpler terms, a pattern, or in this case, a system, can really be best explained as rules, which is what all games are, you see. They are a set of rules which create a dynamic. The rules are like the container for the game. It's the stage where the show takes place. I talked in my previous video about memory and the necessity of containment for perception to exist, so I recommend you check it out if you haven't already. This boundary creates a frame, or in this case, a rule set. Rules are always a limit. It's closure. So in this sense, intelligence is our ability to play games. This is logic in a nutshell, is it not? The navigation and manipulation of rules. It's problem solving. That's all logic is, figuring out the rules and playing the game. However, there is something strange about rules that is very spooky and difficult to put into words. Rules create closure, but this closure can somehow be bypassed. And when this bypassing occurs, something fantastical happens. It appears magical or like a glitch in the system. We experience this as learning. Learning is some kind of magical power. This is what's happening to reality, and by extension, us. We are learning. I've explained that nature is a pattern. However, nature has a relationship with an inexplicable force that I call the imagination. Some call it the future, entropy, or novelty, but perhaps the most transparent and intuitive term for it is simply the unknown. This force causes that which is closed to open. It is pure openness. When this force is cranked to the max, any rule can be broken. And because of this, it cannot be understood. Its very essence is the antithesis of understanding. Now, nature and this force have a dynamic. They are playing some kind of game, the ultimate game. It's pattern/rules/closure versus openness and freedom. It's a dance between containment and escape. Those are the two players. This game, like all games, has an objective. A game has to have a unifying condition that links all the players. Once again, it's a kind of rule. Sometimes the objective is to just win. Sometimes it's to have fun, maybe even to simply waste time. The objective can be anything, but there is always an objective. There is a mutually shared goal, or telos. Once again, returning to this idea of sales and communication, if you click on this video seeking entertainment and I start teaching, you will disengage. The relationship ends. Our game ends before it can even get started because we aren't linked by a shared telos. The goal of a good salesman is to find the game and play it. What is the customer really buying? For example, some clothing brands found out that people aren't trying to buy quality clothing. They're trying to buy social status. So they play the status game. They sell you luxury instead of quality. It takes two to tango. If you want to tango and I want to breakdance, it just simply won't work. Now, with all of this being said, the nature of the objective of this ultimate game nature is playing is completely mysterious. It's like asking, what's the real point of anything? The question we've been asking for thousands of years. Every answer you get will be the result of someone working out their own psychology. A sad person will say it has no point. A happy person will say it's to have fun. What I can say in good faith, that is, as far removed from my personal opinion as possible, is that progress towards this objective is indistinguishable from learning because said progress symbolically presents as a spiraling towards some sort of nexus point, which is precisely what learning looks like. Learning has a shape. It's some kind of archetypal blueprint, and I'll give you examples of what I mean by this. I'll actually give you one of my personal favorite examples. I used to be obsessed with strategy games, specifically TCGs, aka card games, and I specifically took a liking to Yu-Gi-Oh! Shout out to the GOAT format. GOAT format in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is just the earlier version of the game. It's the classic era from when us old folks were younger. And while you can technically still play Yu-Gi-Oh! Today with these cards, you damn sure won't win because they are no longer viable. The game is just too advanced now. These old cards are too slow to keep up with the faster paced and more complex game. Yu-Gi-Oh! Started off simple, at least that's how we view it now, as this initial state of simplicity. Then over time it became far more complicated. This advancing of the game towards more complexity has a name: power creep. Power creep is a big deal in all games. The creep just takes different forms. For example, in chess, the players represent the power creep since the game fundamentally can't change. The people themselves become better and more complex players because chess players today have more chess history to draw and learn from. And this idea of history will come up again shortly, so put a feather in your cap. Yu-Gi-Oh! Started out simple, and over time you can literally see the amount of text in the cards increase as things became more complicated. Now it's to the point where even though I spent years playing the game, I have no clue what's happening anymore. I can watch a game right now and be completely lost even though I spent like 10 years playing it. In this Yu-Gi-Oh! Example, power creep is this spiraling towards a nexus that I'm referring to. It's this subtle yet exponential complexification. It's like an increasing intensity. However, this creeping doesn't just apply to tabletop pastimes. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is just a prime example because it's so apparent. In fact, the creep is so exaggerated, many are saying it threatens to end the game entirely. It's something like a doom spiral, and I think it has something to do with the life cycle of a system. Like I said, it follows an archetypal pattern. For example, in game theory, tit-for-tat patterns eventually lead to mutually assured destruction. For those that don't know, tit-for-tat is where you hit me, then I hit you back harder, then you hit me back even harder than I hit you, and we trade blows in this arms race until we blow each other up. Another very real and practical example is a game we're all forced to play under the threat of violence: Law. The law started out simple, and over time, it branches out and complexifies. It expands out into all of these different bifurcating paths. We went from a simple stone tablet to entire libraries, which contain all the different branching paths law took. And libraries are just archives of information. So once again, you see how history is crucial here. You can even take it to something more basic. Language itself has been complexifying. The dictionary has been getting bigger, not smaller, throughout history. Look at math. The amount of numbers and categories of numbers has been increasing. We went from PEMDAS to entire lattices of arcane alien hieroglyphs. This spiraling intensification or power creep is the natural result of this fundamental game of capture and escape I mentioned previously. When you look at Yu-Gi-Oh! And Law, the amount of text increases as a containment protocol. In simpler terms, when rules are bypassed, the rules grow in order to stop the breach. Language becomes more abundant and specific. This is a universal principle. Going back to game examples, in competitive games, there is something called a meta. This is how everyone tends to be playing at the moment. It's the status quo, to put it in simpler terms, the current trend. There is a pattern. Then eventually there is a break in the pattern, a rupture in the equilibrium that changes everything. Maybe everyone is playing with fire Pokemon, so someone has the bright idea to play with water Pokemon and consequently wreaks havoc on everyone. From the perspective of the meta, this is like a breach in containment. In statistical language, a radical outlier enters the stage and shocks the system. And shock is a good word. When this breaching happens, it is a shock, a surprise, something new, the arrival of an alien. It's magical. This is how magic works. It works by exploiting the gaps in perception. There is a lack of closure. They are able to bypass what you believe to be a closed loop. And when this happens, you are shocked and amazed. If you've ever played against anyone who is significantly more skilled than you at a game, be it chess or even a fighting game like Street Fighter or Smash Bros., that more skilled opponent may as well be a wizard or magician from your perspective. Every time you think you're safe, they show you that you're not. There is nothing you can do to stop them from breaching your defense. It has everything to do with blind spots. You think it's closed, they see it's open. This is because the gap between you and them is so big, they can do things that seem like they break the rules to you. You might even say they are cheating. It's like an exploit. As a matter of fact, in many games, especially games like Yu-Gi-Oh, the breach is commonly an exploit, some unexpected synergy or glitch that destabilizes gameplay. In law, they are called loopholes. If the breach is too bad, the rulers of the game have to step in to contain it via bans and restrictions and new laws. Players find glitches and the developer patches them. Escape and capture. It's ultimately some kind of destabilization technique. You think your defense is impenetrable and it gets penetrated. You think you have them captured and they escape. The part that interests me the most is this magical zone. I love magic and that feeling of being tricked. I guess I'm foolish like that. And this phenomenon of magic distilled down to its essence is really just how something goes from being closed to open. Like with Yu-Gi-Oh, back then the rules appeared to be closed, but now we look back and see they were actually pretty vague and open and ripe for exploitation. But at the moment, it didn't seem like that. They seemed to be closed. This is the part I'm obsessed with. How are we able to look back now and see the openness of what appeared to be closed? When the magician shows you how the trick is done and you say, how could I have not seen that? Well, we learned. That's all. We are able to look back with more clarity simply because we learned. Learning is some kind of magic power. It's the ability to bypass closure, to access hidden information. Intelligence is spooky. It's magical. Someone with a higher IQ can run circles around someone with a lower IQ. It's like taking candy from a baby. The reason you're able to take candy from a baby is because to them it's closed, but to you it's open, so you can walk right on over and take it, leaving them in complete shock. Now, for my fellow weirdos, where else do we see this magic taking place? Dimensionality. Alien minds. A 2D flatlander can build what they believe to be an impenetrable fortress, and you can look right inside. From their perspective, you are an alien mind doing nothing short of magic. The same applies to us. The future is impenetrable to us, but a higher dimensional mind could disclose to you that in 4 years from now, you will conceive a child and you will call her Selena and blah, blah, blah. Once again, it's closure and openness, knowledge and ignorance. I showed in my previous video how closure is fundamental. However, so is openness. In chess, no matter how solid you think your defense is, there is always an opening. We discovered with the uncertainty principle of quantum mechanics and Gödel's incompleteness theorem that complete closure isn't permitted. There is no 100% certainty. This is where dimensionality comes from. A dimension is the space that's open to what preceded it. And since every dimension is open somewhere due to the fundamental negation of closure, they just continually unfold. For a 2D flatlander, 3D space is the blind spot. For us, it's the future. This is why I say that the imagination isn't the future. It just looks like the future to us. The imagination is ignorance itself. It's hidden information. It's pure potential. A good metaphor is a baby. It's a blank slate with nothing but potential in front of it. Nothing has been learned yet. And once you understand what I'm saying, it pretty much solves the problem of free will. People say if there is a way for the future to be seen, then it just proves fate and there is no free will. But this is an error. Free will comes from ignorance, not the future. It's just that for us, the future is what we are ignorant of. If you could obtain a 4D perspective and see the future, there would be something else you are ignorant of, thus maintaining your free will. A new type of hidden information. It would be a new kind of future, as it were. It's just impossible for us to understand what that would be like. It's kind of like new levels, new devils. You can look at money. When you're poor, you have $100 problems. When you are rich, you have $100,000 problems. But there will always be problems. Problems are a sign that you are still alive. It's as I said in the beginning of this video, there has to be the capacity for error, a gap. To lose. It's all hidden information. This disequilibrium is like an engine that makes activity possible. If you consult the laws of physics, this is the case, isn't it? The universe is in a state of disequilibrium, and everything that happens is because of that. Eventually, the universe will reach thermodynamic equilibrium where nothing happens. And I'm using air quotes around the word happen. I know there is some nuance here, but for the sake of simplicity, you get my point. This disequilibrium to equilibrium is like a massive game of escape and capture. You could even say time is escaping the previous moment and being captured by the next one. And this keeps happening until escape is impossible. Time is essentially you learning what happens next, because this is all a learning process. That's what this ultimately manifests as. For example, when everyone is playing fire type Pokemon and someone enters the scene with a water type, it breaks the meta, aka the equilibrium of the status quo. It's a breach of containment. The old way of playing instantly becomes non-competitive, and the meta changes in order to contain the anomaly and once again establish equilibrium. No one is playing fire type anymore and everyone is playing water type. And guess what just happened? Learning. We would say that learning occurred. Someone learned how to bypass the status quo, which triggered the learning response of the group. There is this dance, a ping-ponging back and forth, which increases in intensity over time. We say the system constantly adjusts or adapts. Well, if you pay attention, this is how nature works. When you study biology, epidemiology, virology, etc., these same mechanisms come into play. Because what I'm explaining to you isn't just some abstract metaphysical concept. It's how nature works. We call it evolution. It's a game. Nature is systems within systems within systems. It's games galore. It's a giant orgiastic polyamorous relationship where everything is involved with everything else. Your body is a system that maintains an equilibrium called homeostasis. Then the alien arrives. A virus or bacteria enters via a gap and shocks said system. It starts wreaking havoc. Then the body attempts to neutralize the threat. It contains the spread, literally, breach and containment. And it does this by learning. Your immune system learns. It complexifies with each sickness. It's like a memory database, a library as it were. There's this idea of history coming up again. It's very important. The immune system learns how to contain and the virus evolves to exploit. This is evolution. It's things interacting with the gaps or openness in something else. Sometimes it's an almost literal key and lock relationship. Predation only exists because of gaps. Stalking, camouflage, hiding, super speed. It's all about exploiting a blind spot, the element of surprise. I could go on and on. Society works like this. We are part of nature. Markets adjust and evolve. Look at the marketplace of ideas. When people hear a new idea, it's initially shocking. Then people become desensitized to it over time. It's no longer new or novel. It's contained. Today we say it becomes normalized. It's like the Schopenhauer quote, where first it's ridiculed, then violently opposed, and finally accepted as being self-evident. Look at the news cycle. There's a reason why we don't give a crap about last month's crisis. The crisis didn't magically end. It's just old news. It goes from new and shocking to normal. It's an assimilation process, and media appears to be on a treadmill of increasing intensity. In generations prior, there was a few emergencies a year. Now there is a crisis every day. I can show you this in social media too. A content creator has to trigger you to initiate the game. No trigger means no response, which means no relationship, which means no money. It has to be some kind of shock. Otherwise, it's impossible to stand out in a sea of information where everything looks the same. The nail that sticks out gets hammered down. That's attention, which is ultimately the goal. People are just now learning about rage bait, but this has always been the formula for media. However, after a certain amount of time, a population becomes desensitized to it. The same way we have become desensitized to a new crisis every week. They learn. It's like a form of herd immunity, like how bacteria eventually become immune to antibiotics. You can also certainly look at this in terms of technology as well. When YouTube first started, you didn't need anything but basic equipment. That was the status quo, the meta. Then someone came in with an HD camera and their content exploded. Like a glitch. They got all the attention. 480p was no longer competitive. You needed 720p, then 1080. Then you need a high-def mic, then lights, background, a studio. And this kept ramping up until you reached this cartoonish Hollywood-level production, which is where YouTube is now. The funny and also telling part is that now many of the same consumers who push things in this direction say that it's too polished and inauthentic. YouTube is pretty much becoming the new cable TV, and they long for the simpler days of YouTube. There is a reason why people feel this way. It's capture and escape. When everything is going left, a counterculture will automatically emerge and pull to the right. You can count on it. It's an attempt to escape. The philosopher Hegel talks about how thesis generates its own antithesis. It's the snake eating its own tail. It's always eluding and capturing itself. This motif pops up everywhere of wanting to have our cake and eat it too. We want the security of containment with the freedom of openness, but we can't have both because nature learns by making decisions. There has to be the capacity for loss. You must be able to lose something or nothing can happen at all. What we consider to be things happening is really energy loss. Energy is just a capacity to do work, aka the ability for things to happen. We don't see energy, remember? We only experience its waste products, radiation, motion. These are all ways energy expresses itself. A simple way of thinking about it is like this. If I have a single joule of energy locked in a theoretical vacuum, nothing happens. Things don't start happening until that joule of energy starts to leak. It starts emitting radiation in the form of heat, or it starts vibrating, however it does it. Until that joule goes from 1 to anything less than 1, nothing happens. It's just potential. And until that potential is manifested, participation in reality is non-real. It's imaginary. In science, they would just say it's non-usable. Similarly, a superposition in physics is non-usable. It's potential. It's indeterminate, open, and unresolved. Everything exists in an undifferentiated state where you can have your cake and eat it too. It's both heads and tails. It's the antithesis of conclusion. It's imaginary and non-participating. We cannot have that. A sacrifice must be made. We cannot hold on to both. We have to pick one and forsake the other. Via this sacrifice, we are able to learn the outcomes of events. We can see what happens. It goes from uncertainty to knowledge. A decision is exhausted potential which actualizes into a pattern, an identity. And reality is a decision matrix where undifferentiated uncertainty is being constantly localized into a specific outcome. Alfred North Whitehead calls them actual entities. I say that when potential is exhausted, a pattern emerges and mind identifies it. It's identity. And identity is that which has no potential to be anything else. It's like a box you put it in. This is this. That is that. And that's what memory is. It's the box something is inside of, the clothing the ghost is wearing so that it can be seen. It's the establishment of boundaries and separation, gaps, missing information, loss. You see how it all plays together? When you identify something, it is a specific, unique instance. That's really what it is. Error, delay, gap, loss. It's all about the ability for difference to exist. It's uniqueness. The decision matrix is capturing uniqueness. Each moment in time is unique. That's what it means to be a moment, to be distinct from the rest. Things that confuse you now have the tendency to make sense later. Ignorance will become knowledge. Potential will become the actual. The imaginary will become real. When potential is exhausted and the pattern emerges, the pattern is then swallowed by the past where it exists in harmony with all other decisions. Or rather than using the word harmony, perhaps that term is a bit too tree hugger or woo-woo for you. You can just say context. I mean, it's obvious. We say hindsight 2020. When you look at the past, everything fundamentally makes sense. You can see how this connects to that which caused this, etc. There is this big interconnected complex web where if you start from any point in it, you can see a butterfly effect unfold. You can see how a tree falling down in Africa in the year 100 AD was connected to the price of oil in 1980. Okay, that is a bit of an exaggeration, but if you were a super intelligence or God, that's what you would see. On a more realistic human level, we see things like how an abusive parent in the 1800s is connected to the price of oil in 2026. People say because a particular boy in Germany had his artistic dreams crushed by his father, he went on to become a dictator who started a war which led to nuclear technology, which led to the industrial boom, which led to Donald Trump being born, his business success, his leadership style, then presidency, and ultimately his war and the impact of the price of oil in 2026. Someone will look at this narrative and call it history. That's how we look at the past, as history. But it's important to know that the past is far more complex than we can calculate. History will always be a narrative. You can start from any point in history and connect to any other point because all of the past exists in context to itself. It's a hyperspace where everything is connected to everything else in every way. This is Indra's net within Buddhism. You can say the German kid's dad caused it. The dad of the German kid's dad caused it. You can keep going as far back as you'd like. You can say when life was restricted to the ocean, two fish were fighting for a mate, and the fish that lost ran away and washed up on shore, sparking evolution on land. And now men today carry the misogyny of our fish ancestor who lost a girl. You can start the story from wherever you'd like, but it will always be a story because we can only follow individual decisions. We can only drink so much of the ocean. History is his story. In essence, decisions are how the past is created. Your past is every decision you've ever made, right? You'd also say that everything you've learned so far is the culmination of your past. This is where history comes into play and why power creep is inevitable. The reason why power creep is inevitable is because learning can only happen if the past stays in place. Imagine a scenario where it's fundamentally impossible to remember. If the past disappeared, then progress would be impossible. It would be like forgetting the word someone says right after they say it. You'd never get to the end of the sentence because each word would appear as the first thing being said. There is no way to know anything, no contrast. No closure. Information goes in one ear and out the other. It's an inability to grasp, which is how we often describe learning as grasping and holding on to information. It's pattern apprehension, to apprehend. It's retention, conservation, saving. This is why I call it memory. That's what memory does. It saves. Once again, I covered this in the previous video. But if learning means that the past must be preserved, it also means that it must take up space. And where you believe the location of this space is determines where you are on the woo-woo scale. There is an ongoing debate about where memory is stored. You can look at it like an iceberg, with the most socially acceptable mainstream answers being on top. And I'm somewhere near the deepest part of this iceberg. I've been digging into this for years, and when you get to the bottom of it, memory is stored in a kind of being. It's a transcendental, sentient, computational matrix, which is indistinguishable from God as far as I can tell. And this God is playing a game. You've probably heard people like Alan Watts talk about how reality is playing a game with itself. Well, this is kind of how it is. We are in some kind of situation where the future is being processed and stored as the past, which is accumulating and growing. At least that's how it looks to us, like this roaring wave with a quantum foam edge. It's every decision ever made. It's a memory database of knowledge, and as it expands, we learn. Everything that happens is being influenced by the past. It's harmonically resonating in the background. Think about when you play a game. Each decision you make is based on the totality of everything that played out beforehand. In chess, there is a log of all moves made. People who are able to retain more of what happened before have a strategic advantage. However, there is a problem with games in memory. This is the main part I've been trying to build up to with the importance of history in the past. The longer a game goes on, the more computationally taxing it becomes. Since the past informs the next move, aka the present, the bigger the past becomes, the more computational power is needed in order to progress. Once again, in chess, the endgame is the most complex because it is the most computationally intensive. There is no room for error. This is because the potential is running out. Don't you see? Potential and knowledge have an inverse relationship. If you knew everything, there would be nothing left to imagine. That's another one of my catchphrases. In the beginning, there is maximum potential, and in the end, there is no potential. It becomes all about precision and calculation. You could say that the current decision is made after the entirety of the past is scanned. If I show you an object right now, your brain immediately starts scanning memory in order to figure out what it's looking at. Towards the beginning of the life of a system, the past or memory only contains a handful of files, so this scanning takes place almost instantly. However, as it grows, these scans take longer and longer, and eventually there is a tipping point. That is why this weird spiraling into some kind of nexus happens. Eventually, the game becomes too complicated. The amount of time needed to process a sufficient amount of information in order to make a single decision becomes too burdensome. It's like how mass and the speed of light have this asymptotic relationship where the amount of energy needed for mass to reach the speed of light just keeps increasing and increasing, but never quite making it. It's infinite, so you run out of energy. Likewise, the amount of processing power needed to make decisions keeps on increasing until there is an overload. Call it power creep, a runaway process, a chain reaction, I don't know, but that's the game that's being played. For whatever reason, we as human beings have the ability to naturally intuit this process. This is why what I'm saying makes sense to many of you. This power creeping vision is the same intuition that fuels mystical visions of the end of time. We can see this thing on the horizon. Some say it's oblivion, Armageddon, death. The omega point, the transcendental object, thermodynamic equilibrium, the end of time, heaven, the arrival of an alien. I call it destiny simply because it will happen. And this is where people who discover this normally leave off. They get to this part and start to jump to all kinds of wacky conclusions. They go start a religion or a cult. Some say, well, since Armageddon is inevitable, I may as well do what I want, live in hedonism. Others say, well, I may as not even try, and they live in depression. There are all of these different reactions to this, and as I mentioned, Everyone is just working out their own psychology. We are all coping with the absurdity of being. However, if you continue to reflect on this situation and pay attention to the world around you, you can see where we fit inside of the bigger picture. And when I look at nature, what I see is a perfectionist. It is economic. It's trying to be as efficient as possible. It's something like a businessman. You know, when you look at the parables of Jesus, it's very strange how business-like they are. They have heavy themes of investing, negotiation, and leverage. I mean, many of them are framed in the context of business operations. There is very much so this boss-employee dynamic we have within them. In the parable of the workers in the vineyard, the landowner goes into the marketplace, and when he sees people idly standing around, he asks, "Why have you been sitting around doing nothing?" Every time he sees someone idle, he puts them to work and pays them an agreed upon wage. There is the negotiation aspect. It's agreed upon. A contract or covenant, as we all see throughout scripture. And when you look at how nature operates, this is the case. Once you see nature in the business of taking advantage of as much potential as it can, everything makes more sense. In simpler terms, it's trying to eliminate all waste. This is what efficiency is. Everything is in the business of using as little energy for maximum results. It takes the path of least resistance. You can imagine it like flowing water. It's really tricky to put this into words. Just use business as an example. In business, you have to solve a problem or address a pain point, or the business will not survive. You have to make something easier or better for the customer in some kind of way, or they will immediately disengage. For people to part ways with resources, it has to make sense to them. This is a basic principle of exchange. It's called value. Nature is always looking for value. This is why it's survival of the fittest. The most valuable get the most time to exist. Females seek the most valuable males to prolong the circulation of their genetics in the pool. Having a successful business is nature's reward for being valuable. The way nature determines what's valuable and what isn't is very mysterious and complicated. It's irrational. It doesn't work how we think it does or how we want it to. All I know is everything everywhere feels some kind of role. Sometimes that role is to simply be hated. Even the fire that burns down a forest serves a purpose. Everything is working. That's what energy is, the capacity to work. But it's more like everything is being put to work, like the workers in the vineyard. If you don't work, you don't eat. Your time is cut short. Nature is playing this game of extracting as much potential as it can handle. This translates to us as capability. There's a relationship between potential and capability. The more capable you are, the more potential you have. The more capable you are, the easier things become. Making things easier, reducing friction, less resistance, reducing loss. When we apply this principle to nature, we call it evolution. When we apply this principle to us, we say it's innovation. We learn. It's technology. This is what technology does. People think technology means cybernetics. No, everything is technology. A technology is anything that makes something easier. It enhances capability. It solves a problem, fulfills a purpose. I have a whole video on goals and goal-oriented behavior on the channel, so I won't go into details, but your body is a technology, even the air you breathe. Everything that exists solves some kind of problem for something else. Independence is impossible. Nature demands cooperation. This is why when a technology is introduced that makes things easier, it will be widely adopted. Everything will flow in that direction like a river seeking the lowest path of resistance. It's almost like an addiction. Look at us and our behavior. We addict to technology, and when this happens, the old method is no longer competitive. The meta changes. Once the automobile got invented, you could kiss the horse goodbye. Once the light bulb came about, say adios to the kerosene lamp. Video killed the radio star. Now we are all addicted to the internet, and AI looks like it's the next leap. As much as people complain, it is being widely adopted. What it means for humanity, I don't know, but I have some ideas. But in the end, it doesn't even matter because it is happening. We are offloading much of our thinking onto these systems, which frees up processing power for us. We say it saves time or does something faster because this spiraling towards a nexus has everything to do with how fast information can travel. This increase in speed manifests as some kind of shrinking. It's increasing density of connection. A computer used to be the size of a room. Now it's smaller than a fingernail and way more efficient. The faster information can travel, the smaller the world becomes. Marshall McLuhan talked about the world shrinking due to interconnection. Previously, we had to walk for months to deliver information across the country. Then we domesticated animals and could ride a horse for weeks to deliver the information. Then it was days in a car, hours in a plane, and now seconds via electricity. Look at social media. It's shrinking the distance between the global population. I also think this is why there is so much social destabilization. All of the fighting is because we know too much about each other. Men and women are able to see our different mating strategies, which used to be mysterious. We used to view the Chinese as a country filled with wise old sages, but now you go on social media and see their dirty laundry like the world sees ours. But that's a whole other rant, and there are all kinds of different directions I can take this video, but I need to land this plane. To wrap this up, this phenomenon of shrinking being tied to speeding up has something to do with this nexus of maximum intensity. It's almost as if things are running out of space. I keep saying that we are filling up a space, a possibility space, and as that space fills, the amount of distance available to travel decreases, which also means that frequency increases. Things move faster. This is why time seems to move faster as you get older. You are running out of space, in this case, space-time. Your past is larger. You are processing more information due to the increased amount of information in your memory. You have all of these entangled relationships in your brain, and since time is relational, aka relative, it generates this sensation of speeding up. To put it very simply, when you are older, you think longer before making a decision. This is like the hallmark of maturity. Well, this is also why time feels like it's moving faster. You are processing more information. This spiral into this nexus is indistinguishable from learning. Remember when I said that in the beginning? This nexus is a realization of some kind. To realize is to make real. I say the imagination will become real. Potential will be exhausted and everything that can happen will happen. The possibility space will fill. I mean, this is literally suggested in quantum mechanics, but they are rather late to the party. You can go back to chess. When the last move is made, the game ends. There is no more room left to do anything else. No more potential. And at that very moment, something happens. This is the true mystery. I'm once again using air quotes around the word happen because really my mind goes blank when I try to conceptualize it. It's something transcendental. It's transformation, whatever that looks like. Is it some kind of light speed breakthrough, reaching the end of time and unfolding into a different dimension, returning to Brahman, the pearly gates? Who knows? All I know is that as you run out of space, there is nowhere to hide. It's the end of privacy. No more hidden information. There is no gap or error, aka perfection. To be free from laws, to defeat death, which was the entire mission of the Christ. And this archetypal image in the human being is commonly expressed as some kind of utopia where the lion can lie down with the lamb, the philosopher's stone, which is really any holy grail technology whose defining characteristic is that it's capable of doing anything, or my personal favorite, the perpetual motion machine, a technology which is maximally efficient. It suffers zero energy loss. There's a reason why humanity has a love affair with this contraption. Every person who seems to have lost a screw or two tries to build one of these, but that's a story for another day. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Share the video with your weirdo friends and join our private group on Paramount. It's free to join. Now that we've built things up, we just lowered our paid tiers by like 75%. Now that we've grown a bit, we can finally pass the savings on to you, so come check it out. For less than a YouTube membership, you get access to our weird world filled with exclusive content, forums, private messaging, and most importantly, a community. So come over to paramind.org, link in the description.